welcome to the fourth episode of Reaping Equity. Today I am here with Ms. Schiraldi to discuss the concerning effects of the pandemic on women in the workforce. The Pew Research Center reported that the pandemic resulted in a greater loss of jobs among women than men. What are some of the reasons for that disparity between the genders?
Well, I believe that there's always been a disparity between the genders, and I just think that it made it even greater, the pandemic, because women have been underpaid from the payment of men forever. It has gotten better, but not to where it needs to be. I believe the last time I checked, it was 81 cents per $1. So if you have the same exact job and you're a woman, you're getting paid 81 cents and a man is getting paid $1. So there's always been disparities between genders. But I think the pandemic has made it even greater and a bigger or a larger disparity because women are also caretakers, and women also, there's a lot of single women in our country, and without childcare, if their kids are home from school because of the pandemic, who's going to watch them? So job losses there will escalate.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you were saying, women have a need and a want to stay home just because of the gender roles that have been implemented in America's government system since the 40s and even before then. So I feel like that contributed a lot to why women stopped working, because women are naturally caretakers. That's how the government was set up, and then the men are supposed to be the breadwinners who go to work and make the money for their families. In addition to job loss, how were women's roles in the workplace affected by the pandemic?
Well, I think what I stated before is that if they didn't have anyone for childcare, if childcare places were closed because of the pandemic, and a lot of them were, who are they going to leave their children with? I don't think they had a choice but to leave their jobs. And a lot of the jobs that they left were minimum wage jobs, so it's a problem from the beginning. But then who's going to take care of these children if their children are home? They're going to have to leave their job, and most men didn't have to do that. They, if they had children, either the wife stayed home or they went remote, and it's okay. But women don't have the luxury of that all the time. So I think that totally worked against women for this pandemic. I think it made it a lot worse than even what it was. I think it was bad, but I think this pandemic made it a lot worse.
Yeah, for sure. I also think women, because of how because of gender roles, like I was saying before, I feel like they don't understand how to bargain for higher pay, which I feel also contributes to the wage gap that exists, because we've been raised to be timid and
Submissive.
yeah.
Correct.
So, and I feel that also contributes to why there's that 81-cent wage gap, because we weren't taught to
ask for more.
Yeah.
Know your worth.
Exactly. According to a report by the Center for American Progress, women have lost a net of 5.4 million jobs during the recession, which is nearly 1 million more job losses than men. Why did so many women lose their jobs during the pandemic?
Again, I think this stems back to childcare.
Yeah.
I think that a lot more men had higher positions, that they were either in managerial positions or whatever, so they can just transition into a Zoom meeting or whatever, whereas a lot of these women didn't have the luxury of that, and they had to either be home with their children or I don't know, I just think that there was just such unfairness in the workplace to begin with, and then to have this on top of it, it just created a bigger gap. Again, because men have managerial positions a lot more than women do. Women are working at it and growing in leaps and bounds, but definitely not there yet. And I think a lot of the lower socioeconomic is really where it hit a lot of the women, because they're already in a lower socioeconomic, especially single moms and lower paying jobs, and just making 81 cents on a dollar shows that they're still not where they need to be. They're still not equal.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you were saying about managerial positions and men being more likely to have those positions, I feel like, again, that just draws back to like sexism in the workplace because they think that a man will be able to get the job better done than a woman could.
That's exactly right. And that needs to change.
Yeah. What can the government do to address workplace gender disparities that have been caused or amplified by the pandemic?
I think education is key to all of that for our government to acknowledge. I think educating women, I think like to get them into better positions and higher positions is key. Education in general is key. It takes you to different heights that you never think that you can ever be at, but it takes you there. So I think if our government really made an effort towards gender inequality with education and helping fund women's education even more so, just like they do with minorities, I think that it would help in having these women have higher positions because now they have higher degrees that can lead them to a higher position. And I think that would help something if our government would do, but I don't think that's going to happen at this point because it just hasn't happened yet, and I don't think there's any legislator looking to do that. But I think it's something that should be looked at and something that could help women rise above their minimum wage jobs is educating them.
Yeah, I think also there's an importance of education within homes, like educating your sons and your daughters about the importance of equal pay and equal rights for women and men because that's such an issue. And I feel like parents don't really think about that as an issue unless both parents in the home are working. And then I feel like that's when you really start to notice, like, wow, this workplace is like paying women way less than men are getting paid. So I feel like there's just a need of not only education in schools but also at homes.
I agree with that 100%. And I think that's going to be that's like a couple of generations away. I think it's on the right path, but I still think it's a couple generations away, unfortunately.
CNBC reported that 50% of employed men compared to 30% of employed women I have considered quitting their jobs because their company has not cared about their concerns during the pandemic. What is the reason for this gender disparity?
I think it all stems back to the positions that the men had, as opposed to the positions that the women had. I think that the men had higher positions, and they didn't have to worry about childcare, and women did, and they would be the ones that would be staying home with the children if the man is working. So again, I think that's gender roles. I think it's sexism, everything that you said. I think all leads to those discrepancy in the percentages.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that because of all of this like sexism and separation within like roles in the workplace, I definitely think that like impacts how many women versus men work, and especially because childcare, like you've been saying, like a lot of women again still have old-fashioned views. Considering if you're conservative, I know a lot of women who are conservative would prefer to stay at home and take care of the kids because that's like been implemented in our system, like I was saying. So I feel like that also contributes to a lot of why there's so many like less women working than men.
Absolutely.
How has the pandemic affected the mental health of women who are working and those who are currently unemployed?
It has had a tremendous effect on women's mental health. I think women's mental health in general needed to be addressed before the pandemic because women are usually the ones that need to do everything. They need to go to work, they need to take care of the children, they need to do the laundry. They do a lot more than men roles are in the house generally. So I know that personally. So I think that unemployment and not knowing where, how you're going to, like, your next meal is going to come from, or money issues, is going to do a huge detriment to women's mental health. And it was already not where it should be. And I think it needed to be addressed to begin with, and I think it just amplified it like 1,000%.
Yeah.
Adding other pressures.
I feel like it also gave women like a sense of like worthlessness, like they weren't worthy enough to work and provide for their families, because when you go from working a full-time job to then just automatically it just stops, like you get cut off, you're not working anymore. I feel like that definitely has a huge impact on like their self-esteem. And
it definitely does, and I can attest to that because
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah.
And it definitely had a very large blow to my self-esteem when I wanted to get back into the workforce. It was very difficult to do because I was older. I did stay home with my child for a few years. I don't say I would regret it, but I would always keep my foot in the door. I would work part-time if I had to do it over again, because it was very difficult to get back into the workforce as a older female, and that has a huge impact on your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Huge impact.
Yeah. I know, especially for my mom, she always like feels like less than, even at her job. And I mean, her nursing home is majority women working there, and yet she still feels like she's not like worthy. Or even with school, she doesn't really feel like she's capable of getting her master's degree and becoming a nurse practitioner like she's always wanted to do. So I definitely feel like that's another example of like women who just don't feel like they're like worthy enough.
But that's what we have to change. That's
Yeah.
what we have to change in our schools, and that's what we have to change at home. We have to empower women and let them know that they can do it.
Yeah. Do you think gender will ever cease to be an issue when it comes to treatment of women in the workplace?
I hope it does. I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to take a lot more generations to think the way we're talking. I know I've instilled it in my daughter, and I, hope that people are instilling it in their daughters and empowering them. But I do still see sexism, even in my classroom, with the differences between like the boys and their attitude towards things and the girls. And what I try to do is I just try and empower the girls and tell them they can do anything and be anything. But I think that that's going to take generations of us doing that and bringing the girls to a new level of self-esteem in order for that to work.
I think you just need to implement it in your kids and like make sure that they know that even though they're girls, they could still do just as much as guys can.
Right, exactly, and more.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be implemented at a very young age.
Yeah.
And I think that us as females, it's our jobs and our duty to our daughters to let them know that they can.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Schiraldi, for letting me interview you for this topic. And this is Aria Stuhmer signing off.